Hey there guys, and welcome back to Dino Reacts. So today we're going to be looking at Friday the 13th part 3. So I'm going to give you guys my thoughts, just my reaction on the movie itself. So without further ado, let's get to it. Let's start reviewing Friday the 13th part 3. So guys, Friday the 13th part 3 pretty much picks up the day after part 2. We actually start the movie with Jason, so he's kind of rummaging through local neighbours' houses, you know, their back gardens, things like that, just looking for clothes and maybe weapons also. He does murder 2 people in the area. It's like a married couple. The scene for me, it's really reminiscent of Halloween 2. That's what it reminded me of straight away, but it is a much more extended scene. So we see a lot compared to what we see in the Halloween 2 opening scene. And I did enjoy that about it. I enjoyed meeting the characters before they were killed and just getting a sense of who they were. One thing to note, I do know the original idea for this movie was actually to follow Ginny, so the final girl from the last movie, as she got brought to hospital and Jason followed her there. So you can see in the early days of Friday the 13th, just before they kind of figured out who the character was and what their franchise was going to be, it did have a lot of Halloween traits, which is fine, but you do see the similarities very obviously when you're watching both movies. After that guys, we are introduced to our new cast of teenagers who are driving off to their own doom once again. I did like the teenagers in this movie. Again, yes, they are stereotypes, but I liked them a lot more compared to part 2. We got our stoners in there, we got our prankster, we got our couple who can't take their hands off each other, and we got our final girl in the character of Chris. I did really like Chris in this movie because she had a backstory with Jason. So I think she essentially talks about how Jason attacked her when she was a little bit younger, when she was in the woods. I thought that was really cool because it kind of showed us, you know, Jason was doing stuff when he was in the woods at that time. You know, if there was missing person cases, stuff like that, that would explain it. So I did like that she had a bit of a history with Jason and this kind of trauma that she'd gone through before. It just made the character a lot more interesting and someone you could root for throughout the whole movie. Saying that, the acting is not the best in this movie. It's probably the worst out of the 3 movies I've seen so far. The first one was quite good acting, the second the same. This one, the acting, especially the first half of the movie, is quite atrocious. It's not great acting, if I'm going to say so myself. But again, I did say already, these were new actors. So, you know, new on the scene, just getting their first gig probably. So you can kind of forgive them for that. We are also introduced to the secondary characters in this movie. So I think this was the Friday the 13th movie that started to introduce more secondary characters, so more body count essentially for Jason. We meet kind of like a biker gang towards the start of the movie. They are dispatched pretty quick in the movie. They go to the barn near Higgins Haven, the house where all the teenagers are going to, and they're dispatched fairly fast. I think it's a pitchfork. One of them gets to the throat, one of them gets to the stomach. They're cool kills, so they do have a lot of blood, a lot of gore, which I enjoyed in it, and they're creative kills as well. Which brings us to the kills in this movie and the 3D aspects of them. This movie, guys, it was shot in 3D and it was released in 3D at the time, which is a big thing back in 1982. Some of the 3D shots, they do work really well and they hold up today, whereas other shots don't at all. So there is even shots just without any kills itself. I think the start of the movie, there's a character, he has like a clothesline stick and he's trying to just guide it along the screen so that it goes right in front of the character. But while you're watching it, you can see that the actor is looking towards the camera. I think at one point he even looks at the camera because he's afraid of hitting it. So it does take you out of the movie a little bit. There's another scene where somebody kind of punches through a window and it's the same thing. It just doesn't work very well. There's something a little bit off about it. But at the same time, there are great kills using the 3D features. One girl, she gets like a harpoon to the eye and it flies across the river into her eye. That works really well and it still does kind of hold up. Another kill I really liked in the movie was the character of Andy. So he's the couple in the movie. He's doing like a handstand in his boxers down the hallway. Jason comes behind him and pretty much slices him in half, or almost in half. It's a great kill. It's probably my favorite kill. And the best part is it didn't really cut too much away, so you get to see the kill. One kill that I'm sure was really cool at the time, and I'm pretty sure when I saw it as a kid I thought it was awesome, but it doesn't hold up too much today is the character of Rick. So he's kind of like the final guy of the movie, I suppose. He gets his head kind of smashed in really, but his eye pops out. And I'm sure at the time when you were in cinema and when it pops out, it looked awesome. Today it just doesn't really hold up. More than anything else, it's just the practical effects. The head doesn't look great, but also you can see exactly what they were doing with the 3D aspect of it. Now, moving on from the people getting killed to the main guy doing the killing, Jason Voorhees. For me, this is actually one of my favourite Jasons in the whole franchise. So I wasn't a huge fan of Part 2's Jason. I think Richard Brooker plays Jason in Part 3, and he, for me anyway, does a much better job in the role. He has his own presence to him. He's not that kind of hillbilly little Jason we get in Part 2. You know, he has a presence. He's very big. He's very powerful. But he also gets the iconic hockey mask in this movie. So this is the one that gives Jason his hockey mask, and it makes such a difference when he has his own kind of attire that you can associate him with. So the character of Shelly, who's pretty much beloved by the fans of this franchise. I think some hate him, some love him, but he has been around for a long time, that he's actually in the Friday the 13th game and he's a playable character. He is the one who introduces the hockey mask to the lore. So he has it at the time. I think Jason pretty much kills him. We don't see Jason put the mask on, but the next time we see him after killing Shelly, he has that iconic mask. I also really like how Jason acts in this movie. Now, I did say I am a fan of Michael Myers, so that might be why I like Jason a little bit more in this. He tends to stalk people a lot. He stays in the shadows. Even when he kind of kills people, he tends to just appear out of the shadows and kills them. He's a lot creepier in this movie. He's a lot more mysterious. He's not kind of the brute Jason we get in future installments, or the small kind of hick type Jason we get in Part 2. So I do really like this Jason. I do think they were finally starting to find their footing with Jason in this movie. They hadn't realized, you know, what the character really was yet, but they were definitely going in the right direction. Rounding things up, guys, the last act of this movie is also quite great. So we have the character of Chris, and what I like about her character in that last act of the movie is that she really does fight back against Jason. So every single set piece she goes to, she's constantly fighting and trying to survive against him. I love that about the character. I thought it was great to see. At one point she actually hangs Jason from a barn she's hiding in. There is a lot of action in that scene. In the end, she brings an axe down and impales it into his mask, which also gives the mask that kind of famous crack on the mask itself. For me though, the scariest part of the movie is in that final act where she kind of destroys Jason, she survives the movie, and like the last two installments, we get another dream sequence. This time, it's kind of reminiscent of the first dream sequence in Friday Part 1. We have Chris, she's lying in a boat on the lake, just like Alice was as well. For me, when I watched this scene, it terrified me as a child, and because when she looks back up at Higgins Haven, the house where she had been, she sees Jason in the window without his mask looking out at her. He's quite disfigured. He is quite scary in that scene. Even watching it today, it's quite freaky, and it ends with Pamela Voorhees this time coming out of the river and dragging her under. I thought it was a great scene. It was a nice little dream sequence to mirror the first movie, which I didn't mind. If they're going to do a dream sequence, why not do something like that? Negatives, guys, with this movie would definitely be the acting. It just doesn't hold up pretty much throughout the whole movie. There's one scene in particular where one of the stoner couple, I think it's the girl, runs around the house, and it's absolutely atrocious. Probably the worst acting in the whole series. So that does take you out every now and again. And the 3D aspect as well doesn't work very well all the time. As I said, it does still hold up, but there are a lot of pieces when you're watching it and you can kind of see how silly it really does look. Lastly, as much as I love Jason in this movie, I do get a lot of Michael Myers vibes from him. Now, I know from here on in the franchise he comes less and less like Michael Myers, and they stop looking to that franchise and build their own franchise by themselves. So I do have that to look forward to. But just with this movie, I loved Jason, the way he stalked, the way he appears behind people. But at the same time, I just wish they were a little bit more creative with their own monster and gave him his own stuff to do that was different from other franchises at the time. All in all though, guys, I did enjoy this movie a lot more than Part 2. I thought Jason was much better. I thought the characters were a lot more interesting. So I would definitely recommend the movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. If you've seen it already, jump back in and give it another go. There's a lot to like with this movie. There's a lot of great kills, which is great. They aren't censored like Part 2. And as I said already, Jason gets a lot more development in this movie. So guys, if you like this review, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you can, and let me know what you liked about Friday the 13th Part 3, and if you didn't like something, let me know that too. I would definitely recommend the movie. Next up, I got Friday Part 4, which is definitely one of my favourites. I haven't seen it for a while, so I am interested to see what it's going to be like today. So I'm going to jump on that, guys, and until next time, Heidi Ho.